We are not alone. You are watching Contact TV with your hosts, Lesley Mitchell-Clark
and Wes Roberts,
exploring ufology, metaphysics, and beyond with the world's foremost experts. We are not alone. And welcome everyone to another episode of Contact TV. It's been a little while since we have been able to get together and provide a wonderful, informative show for all you great peeps out there. And we're very excited. It's always fun when we get to have someone on the show who we know and respect and hang out with. And this wonderful guest fulfills all of those great requirements. Yeah. And of course, we're talking about Ryan Stacey. Want to tell the folks a little bit about Ryan?
Sure. So we met Ryan some time ago, and I'm pretty sure it was through ACE. It might not have been, but that's my guess. And we've been going to ACE almost since its inception. We had a blackout period there, but we're back. Let's say we were blacked out, but we're back.
think we were blacklisted, actually, is more what happened, but whatever it was.
So we're back. ACE is now being done under MUFON Canada, and we're all, I believe, scheduled to be there this year.
Oh man, we're really looking forward to it. Another phenomenal event. There simply is no other event in Canada like Alien Cosmic Expo, and this year we have some exciting things. So of course Ryan has been involved with MUFON for some time, and he has a new organization we're going to talk about that we're also involved with. So without further ado, direct from Midland, Ontario, here's our good friend Ryan Stacey. Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, I know we're going to talk an awful lot about TESA. That's one of the main things we want to get into. But something I actually don't know about you is, how did your interest in ufology first become sparked? Was it through a personal experience? Was it through something you saw on television or someone you knew? That's my question. Okay.
Man, a few words.
Yeah.
No, that's X-Files for me. Me and my dad used to watch X-Files all the time. My father actually had a sighting when he was younger. He used to tell me about it all the time. And actually, this year was the first time he actually told this story to a small gathering here in Penetang. So that's what got me interested in UFOs. So of course I watched all the seasons of X-Files, probably multiple times. That's what got me started in UFOs for sure.
Wow, fascinating. Did you? Just as a side note, did you enjoy the reboot, the new season?
I did. I really liked how they got us up to speed with everything that's pretty well happened since the last season, so it was pretty well real. It got me in the feels, like questionable. Is this still a drama series, or is this a recap of the truth? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because an awful lot has happened in the realm of disclosure since those early days, of the X-Files. Was it 1990 that it started? 92, something like that?
Yeah, that'd be about it, because Millennium came out around that time.
About that time, yeah. Another Chris Carter production. Well, that's fascinating. Well, what happened to your dad? Can you tell us a little bit about his experience?
He'd be the better one to tell it, but
okay. Well, we can save that for another time if you want.
It's basic lights in the sky, right? So he's seen it with his couple of his brothers and my grandmother at the time. Just anomalies, like weird traveling lights separating and then reappearing. Anomalous movements, and it was also back in the day when it wasn't so easy to capture. Everyone talked about it like it was nothing. It was a common thing. We just really didn't have anything to document it on, right? He'd have to tell you. I'm not too sure, but I would be very interested in getting him regressed because there may be missing time because he is foggy on some incidents.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's because it happened when he was a kid or he's getting up there. Sorry, Dad, but you might be forgetting some things. But at least we can back check it, right? Or
well, that would be a good idea, Ryan. And you know, the thing is that so many of these experiences that people feel are merely sightings will often turn out to be much more involved encounters, sometimes over years. And certainly there's a lot of, intergenerational activity that goes on, as we've discussed many times. And certainly, you and your partner Priscilla are both very sensitive people, and I think you probably both have a real high PSI factor. I mean, I always know when you're going to call, actually. So you send out, you're a good sender. You send out a real strong signal when you're about to call or get in touch.
We were chatting about this very thing, Ryan, a little bit earlier before the call about how all thoughts are transmitted. And it depends on how susceptible one is to picking them up, but they're all broadcast.
Yeah.
Okay. So the interesting thing is I don't feel as special as everyone says too. I don't feel like I'm as connected on the side level, but there has been some very strange coincidences lately, and TESA was one of those. When we get into that, TESA just kind of just popped in out of nowhere, and we've been running with it ever since. But Priscilla's definitely gifted. I can say that because I've seen it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm still fighting it a little bit, but there's some things I see.
Well, it's gonna rub off anyway, because you're living with a really powerful psychic woman and a healer, and she's really a healer too. You just have to be around her to know that. And I believe she's a Reiki master among her other disciplines. So I hope she will be. Will she be seeing people with cards at this year's ACE as she did last year?
Yeah, we're going to be we're going to talk about the cards. I think she didn't want to do that this year, but I think she should do it. She's not. She just wants to be available to help with her, right? She's more of just doing it because it's needed, right? She's having a hard time putting herself out there. She would like to, but I'm hoping at ACE this year, there's some. By the time we get to ACE this year, that I'm hoping that she'll be more confident enough to display her abilities as confident as she needs to. But she's very smart. She's very good. She's very powerful. She's very sensitive. She's very smart when it comes to picking these things up. And I mean, with the investigative mind, like I've set her up with some traps in the sense of finding information, hours and hours and hours and hours of digging, finding information that nobody could find, and only to have her walk in the room and within 5 seconds tell me, everything I just spent, countless hours investigating.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's just a female thing. We're just like that, girls. We get our information out of the cosmos. But Ryan, tell us a little bit about I guess your involvement with MUFON and how that has morphed or led to this wonderful new organization, TESA, which embraces not only ufology phenomenon, but also high strangeness of all sorts.
Okay, well, so I went to college for police foundations. And when I was done college, I came back and I wanted to start my own private investigating firm. And in doing so, I also had a hobby and an interest in investigating paranormal. So I have been involved in a bunch of paranormal groups over the years where I could tell, being the only person who was actually trained in proper investigations at the time within that group, that there was a separation of investigators and hunters per se, and that's kind of like where the paranormal side stemmed from. So then I investigated, like, once I separated from that group and started doing my own investigations on my own, more seriously and more close kept, while growing the business at the same time, security was more popular at the time, and it was really hard for me to market private investigating. And because the truth is, if I walk into a room and say I'm a private investigator, I will clear that room, right? So it was really hard. So when I was introduced to MUFON, I always knew that MUFON exists, especially through X-Files. Right? Got a plug through that and whatnot. I then learned that MUFON had a Canadian division. So then I reached out, talked to Stu Bundy. I told him at the beginning that I was a paranormal investigator, and I thought that my resources or my talents could be applied to MUFON, being as credible as it is. And from there, that was back in 2015, November 2015. Where I did my first case with MUFON, which is with, I won't say his last name, but with Rick. Do you remember Rick?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
It was the first time we met, right? And that was my very first MUFON case. And the way that I handled that is the very reason why we are still talking today and growing TESA today, because I went above and beyond the current MUFON protocols at the time. One has evolved since then and is changing every single day, and they're doing making a whole bunch of adjustments and trying to stick with this never-ending drip of disclosure, right? Because once everything comes out, it's going to be hard not to cover anything up, I guess, right? So we're gonna be ready. So alongside that, when I investigated, especially with Rick's case, we had also noticed when we went to Conestoga Campground that multiple people had reported paranormal activity in the same spot. So even though that was my first case, that was my first real phenomenon, high strangeness case where I had UFO activity and paranormal activity in the same spot. And the way that I investigated everything, investigated everyone separately and putting it together, I know that the people who have paranormal reports didn't know the people who had UFO reports and vice versa. And the interesting factor within that was that the location that this activity was happening was the same. So that whole shebang with Rick and all that other stuff is what kind of got me jump-started within MUFON. So a year from that, I became the chief investigator for Ontario. A year from that, provincial director of Ontario. A year from that, assistant chief investigator for the country of Canada. Then I went upstairs for a little bit and I did the national director, helped out with training for Jan Arzan and the executive team. I decided that I wanted to focus more on Canada than I did on a national level, so I stepped down. And then from there, I was then, once Stu stepped down, after 3 long years of mentorship, I was promoted actually to the national chief investigator for MUFON. Now, TESA is essentially a creation of everything else outside of MUFON, in the sense that MUFON has been created and designed to investigate UFOs and entities that claim to be in the crafts or whatnot. So anything UFO and alien related is what MUFON is designed for. Throughout these years, multiple times we've received cases of paranormal activity, and because there are no current training for paranormal activity, and it's also not widely accepted in the ufology community, then often it gets ignored, or the focus is hard, or it gets passed off to somebody, and there was never anyone who would take on those paranormal cases. So over the years, whenever a paranormal case had come up, they always sent them to me. So I would deal with those outside of MUFON privately. if it came in through MUFON, then we would deal with it with MUFON through the protocols until it no longer became a UFO issue. And then I would always offer that extended service. And then after a few years after that, I realized that there was an easier way to do this. And then I was relaxing one day out in the middle of nowhere at Priscilla's parents' place, and I don't get to relax too often. And as I thought that I was going to be able to, relax and get away from work and everything else, all of a sudden this information just started coming in. And the next day I just website, and for a week straight I built a website and I created TESA with an idea in mind and not knowing where it was going to go at the time. And then now, a few months later, we have 16 cases, 16 reports that I'm working on right now. And as soon as they're ready, we're going to be ready. So we're going to be busy for that too. So just that's just kind of from there to here. So lots. The common factor along the whole way, I would say, is that my personal interest is that every single report is important. I don't understand why some people in the ufology community don't accept paranormal as well. And because if you go to and that's okay, because they're designed, it's the way MUFON is designed, it's the way MUFON was intended to be, and there are people who join for that purpose and only that purpose only. So to have the paranormal talk at the table, it's always reviewed with some animosity, because it's harder to prove things that in inner dimensions than it is nuts and bolts. And I think some of the flack that comes back is because of the credibility that MUFON needs to keep. So there's a professional understanding there. But personally, and especially with my research over the time, I've started to see parallels and trends, especially with contactees or alien abductees, and people who have been touched or taken by shadow figures or apparitions or any physical apparitions. So the characteristics were very similar. So when I investigated an abduction case or a contactee case or experiencer case rather, on the MUFON, within the MUFON box, right? I still look for identifiers and characteristics. When I investigate reports of shadow figures or sleep paralysis, which is usually common with shadow figures, I started to notice similar characteristics, even though it was investigated in the paranormal box. So then, as of lately, the last 6 months or so, I decided it'd be nice if I could just investigate it all at once, because I know I have enough evidence now to prove, or at least heavily suggest that it's one and the same, or if not connected, or one before the other, or one after the other. So that's pretty well where the idea has come out of, basically trying to make my job easier, but in fact it definitely doubled my workload, and so it's a crazy spiral, but it's fun. It's fun.
Wow.
So if I may,
please.
A couple of things I want to mention this whole paranormal thing. So I was in a paranormal research institution for a number of years way back when, and they did scientific research, and they were associated with the University of Toronto and all that stuff. The moment I started to talk to them about magic, which is a huge interest of mine, they basically said that's a bunch of bull. It's nonsense. Now, tables turn. I'm involved with a lot of people that are involved in magic, and they think the paranormal is a lot of nonsense. And so I relate.
Yeah.
So the term paranormal basically means anything above normal.
Yeah. Sure.
And the interesting thing about this ufology fight, ufology on a whole, right? And of course, MUFON is included in that. But I mean, by definition, ufology is paranormal.
Sure.
Because the movements, the maneuvers, the entities, the interdimensional theories is above our normal understanding. But yet, you see a ghost guy at a UFO convention and everyone loses their mind.
Yeah.
But at at a paranormal convention, we get a UFO expert to come in and speak, and they welcome you with welcome arms.
Yeah.
Open arms for me,
Yeah.
right? So.
Well, I think we can safely say that the anecdotal evidence and certainly also the factual evidence that you've been gathering, and what Wes and I have experienced, indeed, there is not only a massive correlation between so-called psychic occurrences or paranormal occurrences, as you say, and ET encounters, but there are no separate boxes as far as I'm concerned.
No crossover.
There's a total crossover. And one of the main tenets of this, one of the main points that we should bring to the table as far as this coexistence is that experiencers invariably have high psychic ability.
We can talk about the work we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. Experiencers have high psychic abilities generally. Now, they may not always be aware of it. They may not be educated to be aware of it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because we have a wide cross section of people that come to all of us, Ryan. We have people who are, they're on disability or they're not highly functional, and then we have people that are extremely, extremely functional. So there's a wide range, but absolutely. Psychic ability is part, I believe, a big part of what our ET brothers and sisters are interested in. It may be because we are their progeny, it may be a genetic connection, or it may just be as simple as they find it easier to use telepathy, so they've got to find people that can do it, to converse with them, right? And I don't think everybody, well, mostly because people believe they can't, but not everybody is as facile as somebody else. So these things are absolutely hooked up. And as you were going to say, Wes, with our own paranormal work, like you, Ryan, Wes and I have been involved in ghost investigations, and basically we use techniques that would be considered spiritual disciplines. But then I also get visual impressions. I see things very easily. I see manifestations. I always have. So all of those things come to play in both subject matters, I believe, ufology and so-called paranormal incidents or incidents of high strangeness.
And when we were going through our hypnosis process for me, and I've mentioned this before on air and I don't mind mentioning it again, 35 sessions, almost as soon as we began, my psi prowess, if you will, my psi abilities increased almost as soon as we began our sessions.
Well, and I think also that, people are very used to, the uninformed person is very used to thinking of implants as such, as a terrible thing, an invasion, a manipulation. My feeling is, after all these years, that implants may be nothing more than what we would call step-up transformers. They may simply be designed to increase the melatonin or DMT flow or wake up the pineal gland. I believe that implants are by and large not some type of homing device, which they obviously don't need because everybody puts out a unique brain signature. Technically sophisticated entities or discarnate spirits do not need homing devices to find us. It's ludicrous. But what I do think we need help with maybe stimulation of certain parts of our consciousness that have atrophied or not been used.
For sure. So Ryan, and please do pick up on that in a sec. We've used 3 acronyms so far, and some of our viewers may not know them. So so let me introduce those, and then please comment on what Lesley said. So ACE is Alien Cosmic Expo, which will be occurring this fall. And it's the 4th or 5th round, I think.
Is it the 6th? Is it the 6th ACE?
I thought it was number 5, but we can clarify that.
It's September 21st and 22nd.
Oh, you remembered.
Wow. I did.
It'll be my 4th one that I've attended.
Okay, so I think it's the 5th. I think it's the 5th ACE. Yeah,
I think
number
there
5.
was one for that, which I wasn't privileged to because that was before me, and then that black. I think I started during the blackout.
Okay, so it's 5. So that's ACE's Alien Cosmic Expo, which brings together all sorts of interesting folks, and it's about exposure and it's about experiencers.
Oh, yeah.
And Lesley and I will be heavily involved in that. MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network. And then do you want to tell us what TESA stands for?
So TESA stands for the Experiencer Support Association. Mm-hmm. So the idea is it was coming up with an idea or a name that included everyone. Even though at the time when I made it, I wasn't sure if it would be accepted as gracefully as it has through MUFON. Mm-hmm. The intents are positive and to work together and collaborate, but it's just one of those, like, do I want to touch this because it's paranormal, right? But after a few months of me pushing it and whatnot, it seems to be okay. It's not taboo, but no one's really giving me a pat on the back for it. They're just kind of letting it happen, which is good. Mm-hmm. An acceptance per se. But the idea of TESA is not, okay, well, let's try this. So MUFON's primary.
Oh, shoot.
Sorry, I had a call come in on my phone. Did it cut me out there?
Yeah,
just for a moment. We'll fix it.
2 seconds.
Yeah.
This was that call. So MUFON's primary function is to take reports of UFOs and then have them investigated and then archive them. Right? They do put boots on the ground. They do go out and do those on special highlighted cases whenever they do. We do that here in Canada as well. And then that's basically it. Over the years, Kathleen Martin has, developed her experiencer research team, which I believe you're part of as well, right, Lesley?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Ryan. Yes.
Right. So and that kind of stemmed to a support group in the idea of an idea of having someone to talk to that wasn't an official investigator.
Right.
Right. So we were able to talk to someone about what had happened as an experience and just have a one-on-one conversation. So as a member of ERT as well, I do occasionally have conversations with people who just want to talk about it. They don't want to document it. They don't want a phone call. They just want to let it out. Yeah. And then that stops. So the idea of the Experiencer Support Association, the concept is to go one step further.
Right.
And provide a support or to provide a remedy or a possible solution or a fix per se, depending on the situation. So as an example, when measuring the characteristics of an alleged alien abductee versus an alleged shadow figure contact, removing the titles, removing the situations, both parties are generally affected or showing some signs of post-traumatic stress, mm-hmm. and or anxiety or fear, or there's a whole bunch of medical symptoms that are associated with that. In the medical field, it's really, really hard to go up to your doctor and say, hey, I'm seeing things that I shouldn't be seeing, because what happens? Right? Mm-hmm. They'll either ignore you, or they'll lock you up or something like that, or they'll try to medicate you because they don't understand it or they don't accept it. So the concept here is, when I'm talking to experiencers and they don't have a release, sometimes talking about it is enough, but for others, they need help. They need more help. And then when I use Sorry, that call came in again. To you, Lesley, it's on the notion of this person is affected by something.
Yeah.
And regardless of what I believe it to be, there's post-traumatic stress is heavily present. Anxiety is present, and we need to do something, some sort of treatment. So, mm-hmm. in your respect, and which is what I appreciate, and the same thing with Priscilla, and you as well, Wes, like anyone who has this credible background and says it's okay to believe in UFOs, it's okay to believe in it, provides that additional support and relation, because the worst thing that anyone can do while suffering from anything, whether it doesn't even have to be alien or UFO related, right? Because standard traumatic events from any slew of upbringings or anything like that, right? The worst thing that anybody could do is keep it inside, right? So, so that is the entire concept of the experiencer part. So TESA is designed for the experiencers, whereas everything else is designed for the information to do research. Now TESA does the same. However, I guess our philosophy is a little different in the sense that we'll hold, I guess, without the experience, we get more information by treating it instead of just listening to it, I guess. Right? I don't really know the best way to describe it, because it is different, but it's for different reasons. But as an example, so a report comes in through TESA. And what'll happen is I'll be the investigator. I'll be the only one. I'll go through, I'll collect the information. I'll make sure that the witnesses, I have all the details of who, what, where, and when to make sure we can actually do something of it. I'll go through a pass. I'll be like, is support needed or support requested, right? So sometimes the support requested isn't necessary, right? And then the way that it will work, and I do have 16 sitting here that I just haven't finished my first report yet because it's more extensive. If there are some that I think would benefit from Contact TV speaking out, right? Some would benefit from having regression hypnotherapy and things like that too. So then it's more so going to be a referral, right? And then when I refer that to you guys, you're not going to know what I know. You're just going to treat them as they are. And then from there, you guys will write your own opinion report, and then we add that to the report. And then that essentially either strengthens or helps, I guess, discover the information per se. But the concept is, or the reality of it is if it wasn't for the experiencers coming forward and talking to us about it, we wouldn't be able to do anything. We wouldn't be able to talk about this. We wouldn't be able to share these things. So TESA's model really is more about contributing than donating. It's more about treatment than opinions, right? So the investigative side of things, I still do for statistical stuff later on for future research. But the primary focus, again, is to make sure that person who reached out gets some sort of support for money. Because even when we send them to you or anybody else within the support team, some people may be suffering from some sort of mental health issue, and they're unaware of it. Right? So that's something that we need to address on an academic level, on a more professional level, because we really don't know what's going on. So with that being said, the idea is to create that comfort clinic per se, where you can trust us to speak freely and try these pseudosciences, these psi experimentations, with not the purpose of confirming that you've been contacted, because you're going to believe it no matter what we tell you. Right? It's making sure that at the end of the day that you're not afraid to go outside anymore. You're not afraid to share the story with your family and things like that, and like trying to help with the understanding, right?
That's a very interesting point that you brought up, Ryan. And there will always be, albeit a very tiny percentage, there will always be a percentage of people that either come to me directly or come to you who are indeed suffering from mental health issues. And the thing is, we still are helping. Because if a person comes to me and I find out that they're having an anxiety disorder or dissociative disorder, I will send them to the right person, the right mental health care professional, and I will also help reduce their anxiety and, do some therapeutic hypnosis. So when TESA, the word that needs to be underlined, I think, is support, because unlike, and perhaps I shouldn't say this, but unlike MUFON, the entire person is of concern to us. We're about the healing. And most of the time, we will be working with people who have had genuine experiences. Some of the time, we will be working with poor souls who are having mental health issues. But we don't just cast those people aside. I will listen to their story. I will relax them. I will, reduce anxiety and try to figure out the best person for them to see who will provide solid psychiatric help.
And that stems to the idea of the support section within the group. So
yes.
The reason why I'm the only investigator is not because nobody else can investigate. It's because I have a background in policing. I've been a private investigator for since 2009. I own and operate my own private investigating firm. So not to, until someone else comes along who has equal, if not more, credentials, who wants to be to take this mantle, there's no one better qualified than me to investigate the information.
Absolutely.
And the investigative process is important. A lot of people are intimidated by it, but providing it's important to figure out what type of support may be needed, because it's like when you go to a doctor and you tell the doctor, I'm not feeling well. They need to know the symptoms to know which drug to prescribe, and then we test it, we monitor it, and we come back. And there's also follow-up. TESA is going to have a follow-up, which we haven't gone through the whole process yet. We'll have to have, once I get everything all sorted, once the first case is done, we'll see more so on how this is going to stack for a better result too.
Indeed.
And ACEs in places. So you, as a regression hypnotherapist, right? You're the only one on the team. It's not because there may be better ones out there. Right, but that doesn't matter, because the focus is that you're the only one contributing to that. You are the expert in that per se, right? And Wes, you're an expert in your fields, right? And Priscilla's an expert in her field. So it doesn't really matter. There's not going to be any conflict of opinion, right? Because I'm an investigator, it's clear that I'm not a doctor. It's clear that I'm not a regressionist. Right? It's obvious with your credentials that you are, right? And Wes, with you being a teacher and whatnot too, in paranormal background as well, it's evident that that's where your expertise are. So it would be smart to send the people to the right people. Whereas where MUFON is comprised of a bunch of many different peoples with different backgrounds, has the same wears many hats just like me, and there's a lot of professional investigators out there. But unfortunately, there also are some that don't have credentials, and they're making medical diagnosis.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have control of that over here in Canada. I mean, there's a filtering process to prevent that stuff from happening, but that is a concern. So at least having this system this way, you basically write your own report. And the fact that we're all working, right, and we're laying our businesses out on the line, it holds accountability. So when I write an investigative report and I say, this is what I believe is happening, my entire business, my entire lifestyle, my entire home is on the line when I put that down. So when I pass that over to you guys, who also have equal things to lose, and you come up with an opinion, then your opinion is stronger per se. Also, it helps those people who have a profession muster up the courage to come forward and talk. Because there are a lot of people who are afraid to say things because I'm a police officer, I'm a doctor, I'm all along for a union, I don't want to lose my job. Well,
Yeah.
I have an advantage.
I hope and I think that those types of ideas are beginning to vanish and disappear. I'm seeing a trend of much more openness, in the people that are visiting me, and less fearful behavior than what I've seen in the past. And certainly, I think even the media, mainstream media, reflects this desensitization. Look at the programming. How many ghost shows are on there? How many? Well, there's the MUFON. Hanger, whatever, 51, whatever. There's the MUFON show. There's 13 seasons of Ancient Aliens. 13 seasons. So people are watching these amazing shows and are actually beginning to open. The consciousness is raising. Just as we were looking at a different world in 1990 than what we're looking at now, we're going to see even more amazing information coming out and more validation. Even, because, of course, Ryan, this is the era of the real-time mapping of the brain. We are able to know when people's brains are doing unusual things, when they are in trance. We are able to know when we're doing a past life regression, if someone is wired up, that the deep memory centers are firing. So we are going to be more of an equal right brain, left brain world, which is going to require someone like yourself, organizations like TESA, that is capable of detail-oriented right brain analysis and also compassionate, non-judgmental healing modalities.
Now, to touch, just to pull back a little bit, and I will say, like MUFON is capable of doing these things, and there are a group of people that are that go above and beyond.
Yes.
That isn't recognized as well as it should be. And especially Team Canada, and Mark's team in Quebec is phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
And they treat experiencers above and beyond too, and some of that protocol is just being, the type of people that they are, right? They're compassionate, and maybe that's just us Canadians, who knows? But it's just, as I come back to what I originally said, MUFON is not bad. MUFON is just not designed for this. It was never designed to be this. Now they do try.
Complementary, right? These are synchronistic and complementary.
They're complementary. They're not antagonistic. MUFON has always been interested in data and the lights in the sky. And I had a hard time even a couple of years ago, even talking to some people in MUFON about the existence of a Black Ops secret space program. This is something that some of our close friends couldn't even really get on board with. So, but people are opening up, I think.
And MUFON is part of it.
Yeah.
But it's not all of it, right? TESA is part of it, but it's not all of it. Consciousness is part of it, but it's not all of it, right? So that's the idea here. And I don't, depending on the different opinions and how it's received, the idea here is I noticed a void. There's a huge significant part of a bunch of data that's not being looked at least in a proper format. And instead of leaving it on the cutting room floor or chopping room floor, I'm picking up the pieces and trying to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And then I'm also doing trends and reports and surveys every year to keep track of these characteristics to hopefully identify what exactly is going on.
So, please finish.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm glad that you're doing the clarifying bit here, because we're good friends with Stu Bundy and MUFON, and we're good friends with you. This is not a playing favorites thing. This is slotting things into where they need to go.
Well, we have had a tremendous need, in my mind, to integrate as we're talking about paranormal metaphysical events with contact events. That this is an interfacing that just sort of needs to happen. And I, for one, am very thrilled. And speaking of which, Ryan, you've got so many activities on the go right now. I know you must be just crazed, but are you going to be able to continue on to find time for your wonderful spirit investigation, blacklight, ISS, where you go and actually do investigations?
Well, I have a couple investigations this week that I did some, and I got one this week coming up that I have to do. So I'm always investigating. Me personally, like I eat, sleep, poop investigations.
Just the bad stuff.
Here's the thing. It's just like these are different subjects. These are different topics. The investigation process, just like the scientific theory process, is the same, right? So when it doesn't matter whether I'm looking for a ghost, Bigfoot, an alien, or a cheating spouse, right? I still have to collect evidence. I still have to interview the same. I still have to do everything the same way. And the way that I handle the paranormal and the UFO is in a legal format, in the sense that every day I'm prepping something for a court. And I need to make sure that if I present something to the courts, that it's going to be admissible and that it gets accepted. So when I investigate these things and I say no to certain things, it's not because I don't believe in it. It's because I can't prove it. And if I can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, then I continue to dig, which is why I'm also measuring trends. So when I do trends within the company too, statistics of certain crimes that happen on certain sites and security too. So once we understand what's popular, what's current, then we can put in tactical measures to isolate or to cure or to fix, right? And it doesn't matter what the medium is, right? People are people. People are still affected. They're affected by something. They're being taken by someone or something, and they're sharing similar stories about something. But unless we measure it all at once, we're only getting bits and pieces of it from different opinions. So my approach is to try and be as unbiased as possible. So when I hand you the report, I hand you guys the report, and you guys happen to say this is paranormal or it's UFO, I didn't say that, right? I didn't say anything, but I did. What I'm telling you is that the witness, it may be telling the truth because of this. These events that they described did happen, and this is why. The science behind this trait is possible, and here's the research behind it. All these things. So therefore, based on a balance of probabilities, it's very likely that this person may have been abducted by aliens. Right? So that's how I present it. And then when you go through the regression, and you can, based on your experience, you can reinforce that and say, yes, I too, as a professional, also believe that this person may have been abducted. And you, Wes, as a contactee, me too. I also lay down the credentials here and say that this relates to an experience that I have had. And then so imagine us all in the courtroom, and we gotta prepare a case for the courts, and we need to prove that the ghost did it. So and that is the way the court system works for law. Or for murder. They don't have to catch the murder weapon. They just need to paint the picture to make it seem plausible or heavily possible that the event had happened, right? Colonel Mustard in the kitchen with the candlestick, right?
Yes.
So that's essentially what we're doing here is validating and confirming. So we don't need to say it happened or it didn't happen. What I'm doing with TESA is saying that it's possible.
Yeah.
And if it's not possible, then I explain everything's possible, really. But that's how you figure out what's exactly going on, right? And that's where you can separate the opinions from the facts, right? If somebody says I've been taken and kidnapped in the middle of my night. Well, you know, it's possible because people get kidnapped for rape, murder, like different, more serious things. So if that can happen.
Well, that's very, you know, and Ryan, I know without pointing to specific cases, you and I have both worked on cases that, things you have referred to me, where we both felt there was a high probability of sexual abuse. So, you know, these are things
we have to treat that the same, right?
Yeah, we have to treat that the same.
And that's the thing. And we don't want to accuse, but we need to acknowledge the possibility. Whereas MUFON isn't designed to treat sexual abuse. Yeah. So basically what we would do is refer them to someone that we know, but there's no follow-up. And that's the other thing that concerns me too, is at least here within TESA, if I make a referral to someone on the support team, such as you guys, there will be a follow-up. Mm-hmm. And then there will be a continual follow-up with the experiencer to make sure that everything's okay. Because it's not only important to measure the event, it's also important to measure the effect of the treatment to determine whether or not that is the best treatment for that scenario. Mm-hmm. Because so currently, that regression may be stereotyped to be used for certain things, but until we measure the after effect, we don't really know on a quantified level how much that's improving, or if there's a better support, or if additional supports are needed. So, whereas regression and then stack with Reiki or anything else here. My dog's coming in here.
Oh, doggy! Oh, look at that doggy! Oh,
he doesn't know how to read signs.
Oh, what a sweet face!
So I'm going to do some producer stuff.
Okay.
If that's okay, because we're beginning to run the clock, and I don't want to cut any of us off. So we mentioned several organizations, so I want to go through those again. TESACAN.org, TESACAN.org, and your organization, blacklightiss.com. And Ryan, are you available for folks to get in touch with you or not?
Always available.
So you want to tell us how we do that? I've got the info here, but you can tell us.
Just hold on. I'm just trying to fight my dog for not. He's going to fold. Yep, he did it. Hold on for a second.
Unscripted. Upside down and unscripted.
I saw it happening, and I was trying to.
Real time. It's okay.
Live television or whatever it is we're doing.
So I will say this, because I wear many hats, and right. I am aware of the rules of the game, and there are some reports that come into a part of my job being the director of investigations for TESA and the national chief investigator for MUFON Canada, is I need to quickly assess whether you're better handled at MUFON and you're better handled through TESA. Okay. So I will say that if you do report to MUFON, it's handled in MUFON and only MUFON. If you report to TESA, it's handled in TESA and only TESA. But if you're unsure, right, you can message me. Just best way to do it is www.facebook.com/heedtheworld, which is my personal investigative page. Just let me know what's going on, and then I will direct you to what I feel is the best, or I'll give you both options and you can decide. Again, the reporting system for TESA is uniquely designed, and it's different. It's based on conditional logic, and it also allows you to report specific items. So I will say that where MUFON is, you just say everything that's happening, and then it gets filtered out and we investigate. With TESA, you'll do a report for the entity, you'll do a report for the UFO. If you get a report for UFO, I'm more than likely going to message you back and say, hey, do you mind if I share this with MUFON? All right, because it all depends on the marketing's another thing too, right? There's still a lot of people who's never heard on MUFON, right? Even less people have heard of TESA. So the idea, again, with that is the most important thing is you're saying something, right? Doesn't matter, you found someone, you got the courage, you decided to say something. So with our reporting system, it's more specific, and I isolate the problems. We'll say somebody reported being taken in the middle of the night, and there were entities or apparitions and there was missing time. You would actually fill out three reports, one about the entities, one about the craft, and one about the missing time. I investigate those scenarios differently, separately, but then it's blanketed or put together into one file under the one person.
Very good.
Great. I'm glad that you mentioned all that. So we're just about the end of the show.
That's it.
Something you want to shout out? Whatever, unscripted.
What's your doggy's name? Where's your doggy?
His name's Bowser.
Bowser. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today on Contact TV. We couldn't be more thrilled to be able to chat with you and talk about this very exciting organization. Also, you work with MUFON, your work as a paranormal investigator, and also your work as a straight-ahead private investigator. All of that is makes you the unique, the unique you that you are. And we're very, very proud to be your friends and associates, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. We're members of TESA now, and we also work with MUFON, especially Lesley. So we're sort of in one big family. It's all aimed to help, and you've made that abundantly clear today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Thank you for watching Contact TV.
We would like to thank our generous sponsors, Lightwork Hypnosis, UFOria and the UFOria Chronicles, Earth Mystery News, Conspiracy Culture Books, MUFON Canada, Free Experiencers, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and Variety Store Productions.
For guest booking information, please email Wes Roberts at producer@contacttv.ca. And don't forget to join us on Facebook and Twitter.